So look, if you struggle with depression, anxiety, stress, so-called, negative emotions, I I'm here to tell you, maybe as the first person ever, it might never go away. At one point in my life, I was starting from scratch. I had a business that failed. I was donating plasma. If you don't know what that is, you basically pump your arm and sell your blood. I was driving Lyft 14 hours a day, twice a week, and cold calling 4 days a week from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. to try and get business. And a few years later, I'm, a top 1%, top 0.1% income earner in the world. And I can tell you're somebody who's, dealt with this for the last 20 years of my life. Um, Things can be good, things can be bad, and you'll still have these feelings of, depression, of feeling anxious, like maybe something bad's going to happen. And it might never go away. And I found over that time period, I've gone to therapists, I've had coaches, I've bought online programs, I've done all the things. Like I've tried all the different things that you could try. And the only two things that I found that really mattered were, number one, do I have something that is more important to me than my depression? Do I have something that at the end of the day, I can look back on my day and say, you know what? I moved a little closer to this big thing. I moved the needle. I made things better. I made somebody smile. I made somebody laugh. I closed a deal. I, made progress. I got stronger. I picked up a piece of trash on the street. The world's cleaner because of me. But I've always had this thing that I was like, I could be better. I could be better. I could be better. And the second thing was, just this feeling of control. Most of the people that I've talked to over the last, 15 years of being in business that I find really struggle feel like their life is the result of everything else in the world except for them. They're like, the government is charging too high of taxes. The rent is too high. The mortgage is too high. The cost of eggs, too expensive. My neighbors, too negative. My family doesn't love me enough. And what I found was, if I had these two things, even when I'm not feeling that great. And let me tell you guys, just honestly, there's been times where I'm making great money. Everything's moving forward. Everything's going well. And I'm like, I feel not good. Like I don't feel that great. Nothing is that exciting for me. I feel almost nothing or empty. Um, those two things are what kept me in the game. It was like, okay, well, what did I do today? Did I tell somebody I love them? Did I do something nice for somebody? Did I make somebody smile? Did I try my hardest? Did I do one thing that I can just be like, you know what? Hell yeah, dude. I I did something good. I made a difference. I did something meaningful. At least one thing. And if the answer was no, and by the way, there's been days where the answer was no. I was like, I can't think of one thing I did that mattered today. The next thought was, well, what is one thing I could do tomorrow? Can I just text my mom randomly? Hey mom, I love you. I appreciate everything you did when I was a kid to try and, teach me the right way to do things. Or can I call my dad tomorrow and just bullshit with my dad about the Bible or baseball or, whatever? Or, can I just go the extra mile and maybe I go out of my way to do something nice for somebody tomorrow? And then tomorrow night when I think about this stuff, I'll have one thing I can be like, hell yeah, dude, I did that. And then the second is always like, well, where am I blaming somebody else for my problems? Where am I pointing the finger at somebody else instead of pointing the finger at me? There's a karate instructor, I don't remember the guy's name is. He's known for saying this thing because a lot of people couldn't believe he said it. He said, if you get mugged, it's your fault. And people are like, I can't believe you would say that. There's bad people in the world and you don't have any control over that. And he's like, well, if you don't know how to defend yourself, if you can't protect yourself, you didn't take action to be prepared. You know there's bad people in the world. You know bad things happen to good people. If there's a chance of rain, like, people living in London or Seattle, Washington, or somewhere where it rains a lot, if you leave the house without an umbrella, you can't just go around blaming God for the rain. You could have brought an umbrella. You could have thought forward a little bit. So make sure that you take serious responsibility for your life, that you say to yourself, you know what, if something bad happens to me, it's because I didn't think ahead. I didn't think ahead and say, hey man, it might rain. Maybe I should have an umbrella. I've got a backpack I carry with me. I've been traveling the world the last 3 years. And in this backpack, I've got all my stuff. I've got just the basics. I've got a little thing in there. I've got some tweezers, some nail clippers in case I forgot to clip my nails. I've got a little deodorant, especially if you're on long flights, you start to, smell bad. So you got some deodorant. I've got a notebook. I've got a book, so I've got something to do with my time that's useful. I've got these little things, just these little things that I prepared. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to get caught off guard. I don't want to be the person that sits around blaming the rest of the world. Because a lot of people don't know this. I grew up half of my life growing up from ages, just being born to 18 years old. 9 of those years, I was in group homes. I was in state-run facilities, and I blamed the whole world. And at that time, it was fair. It was my parents' fault. It was the state's fault. It was the system's fault. It was the man's fault. I could blame everybody else. But one day I was like, you know what? I'm an adult now. I could do whatever I want. I met a guy, this is 15 years ago. I met this guy, and it made such an impact. I don't know who this guy is. He lives somewhere in Idaho. I was doing door to door sales. And I saw this guy just in this, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 bedroom house, sweatpants, dirty t shirt. He looked like a bum, really. He looked like a bum. And I was trying to, sell him on the service that I had at that time that I was selling. And I asked him, I was like, what do you do? This is a cool house, man. What do you do? He's like, I sell custom license plates on eBay. And I remember that sticking out to me because at that point I was in this mindset. I had this mindset. I was like, I could do it. I could be successful. I could win in life. I'm in control. I run my life. I'm the boss of my life. I could do this. But then I met this guy and I'm like, whoa, you live in this house. You buy license plates from junkyards where they have cars with license plates that are getting destroyed and repurposed into other cars and other things, and then you make enough money to live in a house like this just reselling those license plates on eBay. So, like, a lot of you guys, what happens is you get this emotion, you get this feeling like, oh man, it's always going to be like this. It's always been like this. I've always felt this way. I've always had these problems. My family always had these problems. And you forget that you can go look, you can go out and you can talk to other people and you can be like, wow, like this guy in Idaho lives in a 4 or 5 bedroom house, hangs out in his sweatpants and dirty t-shirts all day long, and he loves his life. That guy was like, he was so stoked. Like when I talked to him about it, he's like, dude, it's so cool. It's like a treasure hunt. Like every time I go to the junkyard, I find something new. And he just decided for himself. Like he was just like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing and I'm going to test it out and see what happens. And what's cool, by the way, if you're currently struggling with depression especially, experimenting is the most fun part. Everything after that is just like systematizing, like scaling, building a team, doing stuff like that. All of the experimentation is the most fun part. You do something and you're like, oh wow, look at what happened. Or you're like, oh wow, that didn't work. That was a total failure. I don't know what I was even thinking, right? But you get in this mode of creating. And in the Bible it says that God created man in his own image. And it's like, well, what did God do before that? Well, God created everything. Okay, so God's a creator. He made man in his own image, which means he made man to create. So if you just extrapolate out the meaning, and maybe you don't believe in God and you just say, to hell with all that, but like just look at the story. It's like, well, that's a good idea. Let's try it. Let's see. Was I made to be a creator? Let's test. Let's experiment. Let's try a new thing. Let's try a new thing. Let's try a new thing. I'll try creating something. I'll sell it to a few people. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I just keep going. But the experimentation, that idea that you take where you're like, you know what? Number one, I'm in control of my life from now on. For the rest of my life, I decide what happens. I'm going to decide. Sure, things are going to happen that are completely outside of my control. I'll get, blindsided. I'll get sideswiped. Things will get crazy. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm in control. I'm going to make the decisions. And then secondly, you're like, I've got this vision, I've got this idea, I've got this picture in my mind. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to live this way. I'm going to meet these kinds of people. I'm going to build this kind of family. I'm going to do all these interesting things with my life. When you get those two things working together, everything else is kind of like that like law of attraction idea. It's just like this idea of like, I'm just going to do what I have to do. I'm just going to try what I have to try. And when I find something that works, I'm going to double down and do more of it. When I find things that don't work, I'm going to learn a little bit, and I'm going to take that learning and apply it to the next experiment. So, if you guys are struggling with this stuff, I want to tell you, as somebody who's dealt with this for the last 20 years, it might not go away. It might not. But if you have something big enough that you can get excited about, or at least have a little bit of pride in yourself every day, a little bit where you're just like, you know what, I did a good job, man. Maybe I had this goal today. I wanted to close these deals, or I wanted to, generate this amount of business, or I wanted to have this thing happen and it didn't. But I still gave it my all. I still woke up. My alarm went off and I was already awake. Or my alarm went off and I got out of bed. A very wise man I met um, said this to me one time. It was such a powerful lesson. He said, confidence is the memory of winning. And he's like, here's the cool thing, winning is subjective. So you could just decide, I got up when my alarm went off. Win number one. I brushed my teeth. Win number two. I shaved. Win number three. I had a healthy breakfast. Or if you're fasting, I didn't have breakfast. I didn't even think about it. I just got straight to work. Win number four. You just keep going and going and going. And then by the end of the day, you're like, man, I've done all this cool stuff. Even if the result wasn't what I was looking for, I still did what I think I should have done. I still followed through. I still had the consistency and the persistence. I still stuck to this idea. Like, I've got this big vision in my mind. I'm going to have this kind of house, this kind of family, this kind of car. I'm going to impact these people's lives this way. I'm going to make this kind of difference. I'm going to do whatever it is that it is for you. And what you find is on the hard days when it really hurts, and it hurts. And if you've had depression, you know what I'm talking about. The pain of depression, the worst part of the pain of depression is it doesn't hurt like if you get a cut or a bruise. It hurts like you feel like just hollow inside. You feel like nothing matters. You're like, why am I even here, man? If you believe in God, you're like, God, why am I even here? Like, what am I fucking doing? Right? You got this like emptiness, this just empty feeling. Like you're like, I feel like I should feel something. I feel like I should be something. I feel like I should do something. And I don't know what to do. Why, But when you just implement that big idea, that sense of control, and then a follow through with discipline, you can still get through those days and say to yourself, you know what, man, I feel awful, but I can still be like, man, I did one good thing today. I did one little thing. I followed through on my word to myself, followed through on my word to somebody else. I made a couple of minutes to make somebody else's day. I said one thing that made people laugh, and the joy in that group went up because of me. I did something. And the reality is, uh, that's better. That's better than not being depressed. I'd rather be depressed and know that I did something good than to not be depressed and know I did nothing. And to quote a rap song I heard one time, there's a lot of hollow-headed idiots in the world, leave that stuff to them. Be one of the people that you look at your life and you're like, you know what? I struggled. I had a hard time. It was rough. It was challenging. I went through all these hard things. I did all these things, but I did that good thing. I did that good thing. I did this good thing. I helped these people. My community's better because of me. It's cleaner because of me. It's happier because of me. It's healthier because of me. Ultimately, that stuff is going to make you feel a sense of fulfillment. And fulfillment is better than happiness any day of the week.